Greek mythology has brought us a lot of characters that are still well known today, but it was originally the stories and legends that were a part of the religion of ancient Greece, and man, a lot of it was pretty messed up and very dark. Let's get freaky!
From people who ate their kids to people getting horrific punishments from the gods and all the weird crazy stuff that happened in between. On today's top 10 list, we will be covering 10 disturbing stories from Greek mythology. Starting off on number 10, we have Cronos. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Because if this story doesn't set the scene for what's to come, I don't know what else will. Before the gods of Olympus, before Zeus and Hera, there were the elder gods Gaia and Uranus. Then their son Cronos married Rhea. Cronos overthrew his father, and when he heard that one of his children was going to do the same, he decided to eat them. That's right. Instead of being like, you know, Rhea, I don't think I want to have kids, he ate them. But after a while, that really started to get on Rhea's nerves, and rightly so. When Cronos then went to swallow Zeus, Rhea tricked him and gave him a rock swaddled in a blanket instead. She stole Zeus and hid him away until the day he would be strong enough to return and overtake his father. Disguised as a cupbearer, he gave his father a purgative that made him puke up all of his siblings because apparently they were still alive in there. Together, they stormed against their father and overthrew him after a 10-year battle.
In our number 9 spot today, we have Arachne. Arachne was a girl who was an exceptional seamstress. She was so good and everyone knew she was good, but she was also maybe a little bit cocky. She ended up saying some things that she shouldn't have when she claimed that she was a better weaver than Athena. Athena is supposed to be the best weaver in existence, and she's also the goddess of war, so I feel like I would not want to mess with her ever. Athena heard what Arachne said and gave her some pretty sound advice to stop running her mouth, but like any good story, Arachne of course did not. This led to the two having a weaving contest, which I like to imagine was a highly publicized event. In a surprising turn of events, Arachne actually ended up winning this contest as she made a stunning and flawless tapestry. Athena saw this and was of course jealous and angry, and then she remembered that she was a god and could do whatever she wanted, so she cursed Arachne to feel guilty for what she had done. Maybe Athena should have just stepped up her weaving game to beat her fair and square, but I guess this is a piece of mythology after all. This is where the story takes a dark and weird turn, however. Arachne ended up feeling so guilty that she took her own life, but then Athena decided to turn her into a spider so that she could weave forever? Honestly, I didn't know that spiders had such long lifespans, but this is just how this story went, so don't shoot the messenger. In our number 8 spot today, we have Prometheus. Prometheus is known as the Titan god of fire and has been known for his intelligence and for being a champion of humankind. But Mr. Prometheus found himself in some trouble with the gods when he defied them by giving fire to human civilization. While I'm appreciative of this, the gods were a bit more salty. Zeus was the one in charge of punishing Prometheus, so he did what anyone would do, if that anyone was extremely disturbed and sadistic. Prometheus was bound to a rock where then an eagle, which is the emblem of Zeus, would then fly down to eat his liver. This is pretty horrific if we're being honest. And the liver was also considered in ancient Greece to be the base of human emotions. This punishment is certainly bad enough just one time, but here's the kicker. Part of the punishment was that his liver would grow back overnight, so that this punishment would be repeated day after day after day. So yeah, certainly less than ideal. In the end, he finally gets rescued from this torture by Heracles, so I guess everyone lived happily ever after?
Coming in at number 7, we have Leda and the Swan. So we know the gods love a little incest, especially considering the union of brother-sister duo Hera and Zeus is the pinnacle of Mount Olympus. But due to their toxic marriage and Zeus's wandering ways, he sometimes had to get a little inventive with his affairs, which included some beastie. This next story tells the tale of Leda and the Swan. Leda was a beautiful princess, married to the king of Sparta, but when Zeus saw her, he fell in love, or in lust, whichever works. But he had to be crafty. So one day, while Leda was by a lake, Zeus appeared to her as a swan and seduced her. What's pretty hazy about this is, did he ever change out of the swan form to do the deed? Could he change out of it? How exactly does one seduce in bird form? Well, Zeus is a god after all, so I guess he figured it out. That same night, Leda slept with her husband, but when she gave birth, her children were hatched out of eggs. The one half belonged to her husband and the other to Zeus. Nevertheless, if the eggs don't answer your question as to what form managed to get with Leda, then keep soul searching, my friend. Must have been one good looking swan.
In our number 6 spot today, we have Heracles and Antaeus. We have all heard of Heracles the hero before, but I did not know this one specific story about him. Heracles is obviously known as quite a warrior who won any challenge he was up against, and that includes his battle with the giant Antaeus. Antaeus was obviously a giant, like I just mentioned, but he was also the son of Gaia, who is the Earth. Well, the personification of Mother Earth. This left Antaeus completely immortal as long as his feet were on the ground. Heracles and Antaeus both liked to challenge and to wrestle, so when they came across each other, it was time for a match. Heracles found that every time he tried to throw Antaeus on the ground, he was just totally fine. Good thing Heracles is both brawn and brains, because he used his little noggin and came up with a plan. Heracles picked Antaeus up and waited until all of his power and life had been totally drained from him, which obviously killed the giant. This kind of seems unfair since it was supposed to be a wrestling battle, but also bringing immortality to a fist fight is pretty unfair as well, so I guess this one just balances out in the end.
Okay, coming in at number 5, we have Procrustes. Have you ever heard of the Procrustean bed? And no, it doesn't mean the bed is crusty, or I guess it could have been after the story. The term actually means a plan or scheme designed to enforce uniformity by violent methods, and its origin is the story we are about to tell you. Procrustes was the son of Poseidon, who didn't live up to any sort of godliness. He was a notorious bandit known for making travelers who passed by his home between Athens and Ulysses to stay the night, but there was a catch. Anyone who stayed had to sleep in his iron bed, which had to fit each guest. If they were too short, he stretched them out. If they were too tall, well, he would fix that too, mostly with something very sharp. The bandit got away with it until Theseus came across and didn't leave until he made Procrustes fit the bed himself.
In our number 4 spot today, we have Erysichthon. Erysichthon was a super greedy dude, and he was also super rich. Since he was super greedy and rich, he didn't really pay much attention to the gods because he thought he was the most important person. Well, being rude usually doesn't end well for most, and that is exactly what happened when he cut down an extremely sacred grove of trees. He only cut down these trees so that he could build another feast hall, which honestly is just really unnecessary. This of course irritated Demeter, which, like, fair enough. After all, she is the goddess of harvest and she looks over the fertility of the earth, so I can understand why she would be annoyed at this guy just doing whatever he wants, like he's the god of trees or something like that. Anyway, instead of being angry and holding a grudge, Demeter just remembered that she is a god, which means that she automatically wins. But she also gave him a little punishment, which was giving him an appetite so strong that he started to eat everything. He ate all the food he had, and then he spent all the money he had trying to satiate his appetite, but it still wasn't enough. After he was poor and still hungry, he even went as far as to try and sell his daughter for more food. So yeah, a real stand-up guy. In the end, he was left with absolutely nothing except for hunger pains, and this is when he decided to turn on himself and he began eating his own flesh, which is of course how he ended up dying. Honestly, I guess the moral of this one is don't cut down trees? I'm not really sure.
Coming in at number 3, we have Myrrha. Aphrodite might be the goddess of love. One would think she would never dream up such a horrid punishment as this. But love, after all, does have two sides to it, and plus, we all know, the gods love a bit of Myrrha was the daughter of Sinras, the king of Cyprus, and his wife Varnes, daughter of King Pygmalion. Myrrha was a kind, beautiful girl who one day made a tragic mistake. She neglected to honor the goddess of love. Aphrodite, scorned, decided to punish the girl by making her fall in love with the worst person imaginable, her father. Myrrha was entirely consumed by it and burning up from the inside out. She did everything she could do to try and fight it, including an attempt at suicide, but when her nurse found her and saved her, Myrrha revealed her plight and begged for her help. Unable to bear seeing the child die, since she practically raised her, the nurse designed a ruse. The nurse disguised her in cloth and a mask and told the king that there was a girl from the village desperately trying to meet him. The queen was away for a celebration of Demeter, so his bed was empty. The king admitted Myrrha and they soon became lovers for 12 straight nights, but one night, Sinras was so curious as to who this mysterious peasant might be and he removed her mask. When he discovered that his lover was indeed his daughter, he reached for his sword and tried to kill her to remedy whatever just happened. Myrrha, horrified and ashamed, fled her father and ran across the desert for 9 months. Oh, and I forgot to mention, she was also pregnant. When she couldn't run anymore, she begged the gods to hide her from the world. They took pity on her and turned her into the Myrrha tree, which one day would be hit by a running boar, revealing the child Adonis tucked into the bark. In our number 2 spot, we have Tantalus and Pelops. Okay, this one is quite a story. So Tantalus was the king of the land that is now Turkey, and he was really well liked by the gods. So well liked that it was common for them to come down and have dinner with him at his table. I feel like the gods would be the most stressful dinner guests, but luckily that is something I don't have to deal with. Anyway, Tantalus for some reason wanted to mess with the sweet spot he was in and see if the gods really were all-knowing. Instead of just asking a question or telling a little white lie or something like that, he instead decides to absolutely go full send on this one and kills his son Pelops, and cooks up his flesh and serves it to the gods at dinner that night. Of course the gods knew right away, except for Demeter because she was mourning the loss of her daughter Persephone, so she wasn't actually paying attention, and she ended up eating a bit of Pelops' shoulder. Anyway, everyone was obviously super upset and probably a little hangry. Zeus ended up throwing Tantalus into Tartarus, which is a deep abyss style dungeon of torment and torture. So now Tantalus spends the rest of eternity standing in water up to his waist and with a fruit tree hanging above his head. This doesn't sound bad, but he is perpetually parched, and if he tries to drink the water it goes away, and if he tries to grab the fruit the wind blows it out of reach. Of course, once he stops trying, the water and the fruit go back to their regular positions. Also, Pelops was brought back to life, and since a bite of his shoulder was eaten, the gods made him one out of ivory, so that's pretty cool. I guess the moral of this one is don't kill your kids. I feel like that should be more instinctual rather than learned, I guess, if we're being honest. Coming in at number 1, we have the story. This is the creepiest one, I don't like it. The story of Tereus, Procne, and Philomela. Tereus in Greek mythology was the son of the god Ares and the king of Thrace. Procne, the eldest daughter of Pandion, king of Athens, was soon married to him, but when they married, the fates didn't bless their union and wailed over their marriage bed. Blissful in the beginning, Procne soon gave birth to their son, Antaeus. But soon, Procne longed to see her sister Philomela and begged her husband to retrieve her. Seeking to please his love, he set out to sea. But here's where the story takes a very, very grim turn. Tereus was consumed by lust when he saw Procne's beautiful sister Philomela, and instead of bringing her out as he promised, he ravaged her and cut out her tongue so she would never be able to speak of the horrors he had forced upon her. He then told Procne and her father that Philomela had tragically died on their way to Thrace. Philomela was trapped for 1 whole year, but all the while she was secretly weaving a tapestry that told her story. She snuck the cloth to a maid who then brought it to the queen, who after reading it in horror saved her sister. But she didn't tell her husband. Oh no, that would be way too easy. She decided to make dinner that night just for the two of them. But when Tereus called for his beloved son Antaeus to join them, Procne simply said, "He's already here," and pointed to the stew which Tereus had already eaten in its entirety. She then revealed her scarred sister standing beside them. Tereus flew into a rage and gave chase, but the two women changed into birds to evade him. Procne a swallow, Philomela a nightingale. Tereus soon followed suit by becoming the ravenous hoopoe bird. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Let us know down below in the comments which story you thought was the craziest, and if you have any stories you want to see in case there's a part 2. Maybe there's a part 2. Vote for a part 2. Greeks are, well, not Greeks, but like mythology's crazy and I like it. Greeks are crazy. You're not, I swear. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski. And I'm Rachel Fisher. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.